Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and salutations, it's me, Sal. Welcome back to 2 Cents Toys. I'm joined tonight by the one, the only, the man, myth, the legend, myself, and Tony and Bobby. So, I'm joined tonight by the purveyor, the head honcho in charge of the current iteration of the Action Force, Mr. Bobby Vala, a very dear friend of mine. How are you doing tonight, Bobby?
What's up, gang? I am great. I was looking forward to this show for at least a week. I couldn't wait.
Hell yeah. I'm very excited to have you. This is the first time Bobby's appearing on the channel. First time of many, I do hope.
This is true. Yes. So, 100%.
And this is my main man, my man with the plan, the man that everyone knows as this gentle giant of the toy community, Mr. Tony Roberts of Analog Toys, making his second appearance on the channel. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well, Sal. I've got 3 different Action Force t-shirts. This was not planned that the one I would grab would be the same one Bobby's wearing, but I think it actually looks good on the screen.
I mean, I was wearing it all day, so I'm a little ripe. So when I went home, I tried to find my green one, but I guess I hadn't washed it, or the 2 that I had, I couldn't find it, and I was like, screw it, I'll just wear the same one.
I tell you, you want to talk about smelling ripe. The last 4 days have all blurred together, and I realized that I had been wearing the same IconiCon shirt the entire time, and I was like, I probably need to change that. That's not so good.
It's almost like a real convention.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, but tonight we are talking about the military influences on toys. We have Mr. Tony Roberts, who is a veteran of the SAS, which is astounding. I count myself honored to know this man. I'm currently active, which I don't ever really talk about on the channel. And we have Mr. Bobby Vala, who is spearheading the military toy lines. Because there's someone, who are they? I can't remember. It's some company thought that they could try and swing their dick everywhere, and ended up giving us Nerf guns. I don't know. I don't remember who it is. Something about has-beens or something. I don't know.
Something like that.
Something like that. So hopefully we're going to have a really great conversation just about the military toy industry, how the toys may affect the military, or real life military affects the toys, or how those toys affected us as individuals, kind of chicken and the egg scenarios. So Dusty Toy says first word came. Yeah, that's okay. You better strap in, baby, because there's probably going to be a lot of them. So, because as you may be able to guess, my channel predominantly isn't necessarily PG. I flirt with R ratings sometimes, but this is a more relaxed, kind of laid back stream. So I'm just going to go round robin. I tend to go clockwise on these things. Bobby, give us a little bit of background on what kind of got you interested in G.I. Joe and Action Force, as the case may be.
I don't know what it was when I was a kid that got me into G.I. Joe, but as long as I can remember, G.I. Joe has been a part of my life, my childhood. So, and the odd thing is now that I have kids, and, when my son he's 5 now, but when he was, really young, I didn't really give him toy guns, Nerf blasters or anything like that. But he would pick up a stick and just almost instinctively know to use it. He would call them shooters.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't know where he picked it up from, or where he saw it, but it's just kind of something that's in everything. It's he watches Paw Patrol. You see them holding a fire hose, almost like a blaster in a way. So it's that sort of aspect is kind of always in your face, and then G.I. Joe is just kind of the skin over top of it. So I think it's like I said, there's almost like a instinctual thing that kind of comes with it. But yeah, I can't really put my finger on what it was, when it started with G.I. Joe. I know it's always been there. Like the earliest memories I have of like playing with toys, it was G.I. Joe was there. Like I did that. And then Action Force was something I didn't get into until my 20s. I had no idea what it was. And I was at a toy show and a guy was selling a red laser and I thought it was a knockoff. And then he kind of gave me like an education on what Action Force was. And then from then on, like I saw more of it, and there was in some magazines, and then it was on yojo.com. So, it was kind of cool to then, find out about this whole other realm of G.I. Joe or something similar to G.I. Joe that I had never known. But I like saw it and I loved it and I immersed myself in it and, spent a lot of money trying to get, the imported figures because they were hard to get. I mean, they're even harder now, but luckily I got them, when they were at least on the cheaper side, but they were still super expensive then. And now it's like to be able to do the Action Force line, I can't even, like, to say like it's a dream come true is kind of cheesy and cliche, but it's like I can't even really describe what it's like. For instance, like in my conference rooms, I'm calling it the war room. I'm going to have one side that's going to be all my current modern day Action Force samples. And then on the other side is going to be all Palatoy Action Force. So it's going to be like a now and then. And like I started putting some of the stuff in there and I was like, wow, like this is really wild to like see it kind of together, and to have it, become something. And the fact that, 2 years ago, Action Force was nothing anyone ever thought of. It was like, it was dead, and now it's something, yes, it's new. It's not Zed Force and it's not what Palatoy had done, but I made sure that this line is very much modeled after that. And it gives homage to that because without that previous line, my line wouldn't be here. So, that's kind of all of it in a nice little ball.
Hell yeah, that's what we call dreams coming true. That's I love stories like that. Just the love you're able to take a love and a passion that you had and turn it into, kind of a life mission or a goal or, I hate to call it work, but Lord knows there's a lot of work that goes into it. But
it's the best kind of work.
Yeah,
I love it. I absolutely love it.
So we have a few super chats to go through, but before that, Tony, I'm not going to repeat the question. I just expect you to answer it. I'm kidding. Well, do you remember when you first got into Action Force in your case and Action Man and all that, and kind of what drew you to that in the first place?
Action Man came first for me, and it's actually one of my earliest childhood memories. For some reason, in this memory, I'm in the backyard, but I was given an Action Man figure, dressed in the basic British soldier uniform with the SLR rifle. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it was a hand-me-down from my older brother or if it was a birthday or Christmas present. But I just remember holding this thing, and it was like Indy holding up the idol. I was like, wow, what? And then asking my dad, like, what is this guy? What, because I was a kind of into superheroes and stuff prior to that point. I like Spider-Man and things. And my dad explained what Action Man was, and in particular what soldiers were. And I remember hearing words like army and defending the country. And I would have been like 4 years old. And I said to me that I'm going to be a soldier when I grow up. And it was that, and it never left me. From that moment on, I was, when I wasn't at school growing up during the 1980s, I was dressed in British DPM camo all the time. Mm-hmm. I had a camouflage jacket. I had several pairs of camouflage pants, cargo pants, T-shirts. That's all I ever wanted to dress in was military gear. And I've always had an affinity towards military themed toy lines. I like superheroes, and I'm a big Star Wars fan, but I was never going to grow up and be a Jedi Knight or a web slinger or a billionaire vigilante who dresses like a bat. But I could grow up and be a Royal Marine Commando or a British Army paratrooper or something like that. So because it was a real world thing, I think that's what appealed to me the most.
Absolutely, which I'm loving the answers I'm getting right now, because that's all that stuff's going to tie into some questions we have later, especially about real world and all that. Just quickly, I got into GI Joe when I was a kid. I have an older brother, 7 to 8 years my senior. He had a couple hand-me-downs laying around, didn't know what they were necessarily. Like, it's strange. Like, I remember getting my first GI Joe, but I don't remember those hand-me-downs. Like, I played with them, and I know that they were around because they were released 5 years before mine. But I had a General Flag from '92, I think. My dad came back from a business trip and pulled it out of his little suitcase. I was sitting on the couch in the living room, and he handed it to me. And that was the first time, like, I'd gotten my own GI Joe, knew what it was, because he told me it was a GI Joe, and the rest is history. Which I wasn't able to find him for my display here, but he's still with me to this day. Can't be repaired. I tried to do the old power drill trick to get the screw out, and may have put a big hole in him, so he's kind of super glued together. But I still got him. He's a little worse for wear. But quickly, we have some super chats to go through. Masterson42 with the first one says, finally, a panel I'm an expert in. United States Navy, United States Air Force retired in the house. I expect a lot of curse words with this group, and you can fucking well expect it, because you're going to get them.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you for your service, by the way.
Thank you.
Laser Pants. Oh, throwing shade already. Says, 2 of my favorite YouTubers, and Bobby.
I can't even say anything to him. I lost to him. I lost to you. It was a poor showing on my behalf today.
That's all right. We all lost to Tim, who likes Star Trek 4, so there's that. Ryan Sweeney says, a big thank you to Bobby, Sal, and Tony for all the hard work for IconiCon.
Hey, listen, it's all them. It's not me. I just show up.
And, I can take that claim and say that I had a big hand in helping IconiCon, but that's almost entirely on Tony and Melinda. I don't know how you two did it. I'd show up for the meetings and my brain would smooth over almost immediately. I tried my best, but good Lord, you two pulled it out, pulled it off somehow. So
somehow, and it's really hard for me to tell, sitting here in the midst of it all and struggling with time zones and sleep. And I actually messaged my moderator last night, and I was like, do you think IconiCon's going well? Like, I feel like it is, but it's really hard for me to tell from here. I think I'll probably be looking back on it in another week or so's time before I can get a good perspective. So
really quick, I see you, Jody, but Scott Hughes asks what the red blue ball is off to the side. That is that's part of the Cobra Bug, which is my favorite Cobra vehicle, but it was either the Cobra Bug or all of that you see before you, so I just pulled that one piece off. But Jody says, just cuz for 25 euro. Thank you, Jody.
Jody.
He's really good at that, the just cuz ones.
Yeah.
So, alrighty. So, we were talking about kind of the G.I. Joes and the action forces of the world. And so you kind of mentioned, Tony, the knowing that you couldn't grow up to be, Captain America, for example, or Iron Man, or, Batman, or whoever. I'm curious what you think what it might be about our cultures that make military style toys so alluring. Like Bobby, you'd mentioned there was almost this instinctual thing, which, you can take it back to when we were kids. You'd pick up a stick and that was a sword. We just have this inherent, draw to it. And I'm curious, with all that, do you think we have this an inherent kind of hero type attribute imbued in these characters? Like, we just see them as heroic, and they're heroes that we can relate to because they're real people, and maybe that's why we implant it on them.
Who's going first? Me, Bobby?
You can go first.
I know that was kind of a big question.
Yeah, certainly for me, I grew up in a generation where everyone's grandfather was a World War II veteran. So when you're young and you start getting interested in the military, and then so my grandfather on my dad's side, he was a British Army medic. He was in the medical corps. He served in Burma. He treated a lot of the prisoners of war who came off the Burma Railway. And my grandfather on my mother's side, he was in the Navy, and I was particularly close to him. I lost him very young in life. He was the first grandparent I lost, but he was in the Navy, but he would never really like talk about the war. I just knew that he was I always pronounce this word wrong. A semaphore flagsman, a signalman with the flags.
Mm-hmm.
And I always knew that's what he did in the Navy, and he never talked much. He talked about being in the Navy, but not about really being in the war or anything. And for many, many years, I assumed that he didn't really do a lot. And it was 15 years after he died. It was the 60th anniversary of D-Day. I'd been given his medals after he passed away, and I wanted to get them framed, but I wanted to do a bit of a write-up of his history. And when I started researching what he did in World War II, I discovered 15 years after he passed away that he drove, or he didn't drive. He was a crew member on landing craft at Sword Beach on D-Day. Mm-hmm. So when you have there are role models on TV. You know, I was a big fan of Zorro when I was a kid, but I wasn't going to grow up to be Zorro. Once I started to get interested in this, it was always important that, like, on Remembrance Day, I would go down and I would march with my granddad, and he was wear his medals. He was very proud of having the Burma Star for serving in Burma. And it was looking at these real life heroes, and I don't know. There's something about the uniforms as well. I've never really been a fashion conscious guy. To me, I look at someone in military kit and think, does that look cool or not? Mm-hmm. And that's what I was like growing up. As I said, when I was out of school, you know, I wasn't following fashion trends. I would get out of school and I would want to change out of my school uniform and get into disruptive pattern camouflage material and stuff like that. So,
right. That's that. I'm gonna come back to some of those points, but what do you think, Bobby, about that whole thing? I can repeat most of that if you need me to.
Yeah. Just because I was listening to Tony, but then I forgot what the initial question was.
Yeah, I do that too. When I hear responses, I just kind of fall into it, and I'm like, "Oh shit, my turn to talk." So I'm asking about what is it about our culture that makes military style toys so alluring, and if you think it's is there an inherent type of hero attribute in these characters, and maybe that's why we implant it on them, or what is this that kind of pulls us in as this, like, culturally?
Yeah, I think definitely that hero aspect. I mean, look at police officers, and I know it's a different time now in society, but when I was a kid, you respected police officers, and we loved police officers, and they were like real life heroes. And then when I was young when Desert Storm had started, and that was kind of a time where the whole country kind of got together around that war. Like, it wasn't like wars after where we were all divided. Desert Storm, it was kind of like we were together on it. And I remember there were Desert Storm trading cards, and you go into Toys R Us, and it was like all the play guns were desert camo colors, and costumes in stores were, desert camo BDUs. And me and my best friend growing up, all we would do is wear tan camo BDUs, like, all the time, and, like Marine covers. It was just, we would just play like, cause it was like when Desert Storm was going on. So it was celebrated in that sense. And it wasn't like, it wasn't like our parents tried to hide it from us or anything like that. It was like, no, these are soldiers. They're fighting a battle, and they're heroes. So there's definitely that hero aspect for sure.
Mm-hmm. That's even culture, like talking about, that kind of time period. We even had Sergeant Slaughter in wrestling.
Sure.
It seemed like, to touch further on that, I'm reading the chat as I'm listening to these responses. It seems like like everyone here has someone either themselves or someone they're closely related to that served. And I think maybe that was part of it. You had like my grandfather was in the Korean War. Like we all have someone, and my whole mom's side of the family are all Army guys. We all have someone that we're directly related to or ourselves that have served, and I think that kind of impacts our draw to things like GI Joe, because it's something grounded in reality that we can kind of latch on to. You can grow up to be these people.
Yeah.
So to kind of go off that hero thing a little bit more, talking to kind of Tony, what you were saying about not being able to grow up to be Zorro or grow up to be, the Hulk, for example, because I know he's your favorite. What do you think it would be fair to put the likes of the Joes and Action Force in league with Batman and Superman and Spider-Man and all of them, but not in terms of power, but like in terms of their character, what they stand for, and maybe that might be part of the allure?
Even from a young age, to me, it was always two completely separate things. It's this fantasy hero, and then what is potentially this real life hero. I would look at the characters in Action Force. I was a big fan of Flint. Like when I read the Action Force comics, he was his file card were kind of slightly changed to be. He was a British Army warrant officer. He wasn't an American guy, and wearing the beret and all of that kind of stuff. From a very young age, I held military heroes I just looked at them totally different to superheroes, and it comes from the stories from my grandfathers, I suppose. I'm sure my granddad on my dad's side, like I said, who was a medic in World War II, he stayed in the army a long time after the Second World War. And he wouldn't exactly talk about World War II, but he would always talk about his time in the army. And it was one of those, it was kind of the gauge of a man. Right. If you were able to do it and be successful at it, and those role models had a very big impact on me. I hope I answered that right, because I can't remember what stream it was in, Bobby. As I said, I'm getting confusing, but we were laughing on another stream the other day where I was talking about me dressing up as He-Man. I've got a story about how I used to act out the Incredible Hulk that might be even more embarrassing. But anyway, I'll tell you later.
Yeah, we'll have to save that one at least for right now. But no, I'm thinking, like, let's say Duke, for example. Stands up for the right thing and doesn't take shit from anybody and will punch Cobra directly in his fucking mouth. To me, those people, like G.I. Joe or Action Force, those people have the same core values as, say, someone like Superman, but they don't have the superhuman strength. They have to rely on training and their own mortality to kind of get these things done. So I didn't know if either of you would agree with that statement, or what your opinions on that might be.
Well, I think you really, when you mentioned Superman there, that to me is the perfect superhero to choose, because a real soldier who is dedicated to his service, should have the kind of morals of Superman. I didn't want to ever really serve with someone who had the mentality of Batman or the Punisher.
Right.
Superman, truth, justice, the American way. That's what we aspire to take those morals and, try and do that in real life with blood, sweat, and tears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything to add, Bobby?
It's my here, like my toys, like Batman, the superheroes, I never mixed. Like G.I. Joe was always on its own. Granted, the scales are different. I was really weird about that when I was a kid. But I think what it comes down to is a very simple good versus evil. You know, it's G.I. Joe is against a ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world. So it's like they're all against good versus evil. There's no like I guess the reason I wasn't into Transformers was because they were robots. So it's like I really didn't give a shit which robot was on whose side. They were just like having their problems over here. Whereas like G.I. Joe, it's humans versus humans. Superheroes,
Right.
Superheroes, Superman's an alien, but potato kind of thing. It's still that human nature of good versus evil.
Right.
So in that sense, like yes, they could definitely be on that even plane.
Mm-hmm. It was more about firepower and sheer willpower than having superpowers.
Because at the end of the day, Batman is a guy. He drives a Batmobile. The Batmobile had guns on it in the '89 movie. It's like, G.I. Joes, they're in tanks, with guns. So it was like, there was definitely that overlap there.
Right. Let's see. Batman to me is kind of like Destro and Tomax and Zaymot all rolled into one person with a better attitude because he's got the money of those two and the weapons of Destro, but he has a more altruistic attitude.
It's a good way of explaining.
Jim Largo sends his super chat. He says, Dad was career Navy for 30 years, so of course he joined the Army just to piss him off. He had lots of G.I. Joe stuff in the house growing up.
Wow.
It's a good way to grow up with all the G.I. Joe stuff. And Connor Fuller, thank you both, by the way, says, growing up World War II movies were always on TV and had a huge impact on me. He's asking, did any of us replicate movie plots with our toys?
I did it with all my toy lines, but in particular, I remember using the G.I. Joe Tomahawk and a number of different G.I. Joe characters. This would have been the first year I was living in Australia, so like 11, 12 years old. And I would recreate a lot of the scenes from Predator. So I had different G.I. Joe characters representing, the different Dutch and Billy and all that kind of thing. And it was like, I don't know, Toxo Viper or Astro Viper was always the Predator. And but I think all I really enjoyed was the whole fly in the helicopter and have them abseil out, and then I would just recreate that scene. That's the one I really remember doing. But
what about you, Bobby?
See, we talked about Commando earlier today. People aren't a fan of Commando. I'm a huge fan of Commando. I would have the Joes raid an armory and get all the weapons, and then go to the beach and fight Cobra. So it was like that. That kind of was in my wheelhouse when I was, playing with them. It was always I always treated the Joes as if they were almost like the Renegades cartoon, where they were not really the good guys right off the bat. They were almost like the vigilantes, like Batman, trying to do the right thing. Go there, oh, we have to go get guns first. Go get guns. Oh, and then let's go fight Cobra.
Right. Yeah, that was Renegades is. I think I tried to watch that once, and I couldn't get past the animation style.
Yeah,
but I liked what I was seeing. But for me, not really. The only World War II movies that I'd seen as a kid, I'd seen Tora 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 and Saving Private Ryan. And I didn't have enough planes to replicate Tora Tora Tora. And Saving Private Ryan, I come from a landlocked state, so I had to try and emulate Omaha Beach with the kitchen sink, which just kills the illusion right away.
Yeah.
But did have a question from Dusty Fox before we move on to our questions. He asked, what are your guys' favorite Joe? Well, I already know Bobby's.
He must not be familiar with me.
Yeah.
I have a couple of these guys, just a couple.
Yeah. Only what, 150, something like that?
I think I'm just under 150. I'm at 130 or 140.
Yeah, so he's not a serious collector of them or anything.
No, I want to say when I was a kid, it was Snake Eyes version 2. But no, it's really hard for me to pick a favorite G.I. Joe. I've always liked Flint. in the UK, Flint took much more of the Duke role. Like even in advertising, Flint was the image that you saw on everything, from lunch boxes to cups to all the coloring in books and everything, and Flint was always on the cover. So I've got an affinity towards him, and also I've always liked Hit and Run for some reason.
Great Joe.
A later Joe, but there's something about the camo and the camouflage paint, and he's abseiling down the Ghostbusters firehouse right now.
And there's something just so freaking cool about a grappling hook.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I don't know what it is. The grappling hooks are cool. That's
my mom had a fake tree in the corner, and I used to just always hang him from like the branches. He was the dude just hanging out in the jungle.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So Ronnie James DOA sends a super chat. He says, great topic and great panel. Thank you. I appreciate it. I think it's going to shake out beautifully. And following that up, your boy Alex sent in one. He says, love the show, Sal. He asks, Bobby, why are you cosplaying as Tony?
I'm doing it poorly.
I wish I could. So,
look, I knew Bobby had that T-shirt on because I was on a panel with him earlier. So since I chose this one for the panel, maybe I'm cosplaying as Bobby.
It's true. Let's see. So here's kind of an interesting question, because we know that G.I. Joe, Stateside, and Action Force Across the Pond are kind of like the giants of the military toy world, right? They're the heavy hitters, if you will. Why is it, do you think, that other military toy lines kind of struggle to gain a foothold, like the Core, for example? Like, just never kind of got that foothold. Do you think it's characters, or?
I think it's a combination of things. Probably unique characters. At the time there was no Core animation or comic book. So it was just the figures. Now, granted, when I started my Action Force line, like, I could have went one of two ways. I could have done it like Marauders and just made generic soldiers that I let everyone else use their imagination and customize. I didn't want to go that route. I wanted to create character. I wanted to create story, because not what Marauders does isn't great. It is great, but it's very singular. There's not a lot to branch off of from there. When you create a world and characters, you can evolve in so many different directions and so much quicker. So I knew I wanted to create an IP, and I wanted it to be a brand. I wanted it to be something that, like us, like G.I. Joe sleeping bags and lunch boxes. I know it's not like that nowadays, but like I thought of that. Like, I want Action Force to be more than just figures. And I right away knew I wanted to do the comics, because that's how you get the story told while people are waiting for these awesome figures. And now it's like I'm talking with partners, and it's like we have the movie going, but I'm pushing them to think about animation. I have ideas for what I want to do as far as getting into the digital realm with video games. And I want this to be a brand that people recognize. And maybe it'll never be as big as G.I. Joe, because G.I. Joe has like this longevity and all this history. But I would like it to be something that, when you say Action Force, it's like, yes, people know the original Action Force, but it'd be great if you say Action Force and people thought of my Action Force and what I'm bringing to the table. So I'm not trying to overwrite anything that Palatoy did that came before. It's not like that at all. I want Action Force to be something that that is a name that people recognize.
I think that was a really smart move too, to have the comic books come out first, because it gives you that ability to connect to a character instead of because Karak looks awesome. The Swarm make my nipples hard. All right. But having a comic book gives me I need, Bone Collector now or something. I think that's a really smart move, and the story's fucking good. So, which is more than I can say for a lot of modern comics. I don't know if you've read any recently, but really,
I don't read much. No. I'm too busy to read anything. I could barely get around to reading the scripts from my own comics.
So what say you, Tony? Why do you think that other toy lines kind of, or similar style toy lines kind of struggle to gain that foothold, or at least that, because the core's been around since G.I. Joe. They haven't stopped the body style change, but it's like there's no like huge avid fan base like there is for G.I. Joe. Not saying the core doesn't have their fans, but I'm just saying, like, speaking frankly, there's like 5 Joe fans for every half of a core fan. So,
well, I think the ratio will be a bit bigger than that, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say that too.
I think the odds are more like 50 to 1.
I was trying to be polite.
No, 100%, because I can only speak from my perspective, but I do feel a lot of other people are going to understand where I'm coming from and have probably had a similar experience. So for me, it really starts. So with the Action Force International Heroes comic that came out in 1987 in the UK, the first action figure I ever got was Barbecue. I saw that in the toy store first. Was fascinated by the design of this action figure, brought Barbecue home. And then the comics got released. And in the UK, it was a weekly comic. So in the first year that Action Force launched, as in Action Force International Heroes, just the Hasbro rebranding, we was getting a comic every single week. And I was probably like 4 or 5 issues in when I still only had Barbecue. I'm getting invested in all of these characters and the story and the different dynamics between the characters.
Mm-hmm.
You then take me back to a toy store with a bit of pocket money and go, right, you can add 2 more figures to your collection. Mm-hmm. And then you see some core guys over there. Like, I don't think the core was around in 87 in the UK, but had I of it would be like, I would have had no interest in that. And I would have been able to tell, like, going right back to the 1960s, the inception of the original 12-inch G.I. Joe line, Hasbro made some very, very smart choices by giving G.I. Joe the metal dog tag. They wanted the product to be a symbol of quality, in the material, the tailoring, the type of plastic used, the scar on the cheek. And, there were lots of knockoffs that came afterwards, the Fighting Yank and all this type of stuff. But, even as young kids, we recognized that symbol of quality. And that carried over into the 1980s G.I. Joe line or Action Force if you're in the UK. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that the core are poor quality. They're not up there. And once you get invested in that world and those characters, you don't want some random guy who's like Dusty from the neck down and Sergeant Slaughter from the neck up. So
right, yeah, and that's we have a couple super chat questions here, but real quick before I get into those, was there any character that you may have obtained or figure you may have obtained before you kind of figured out their their story, and then reading the comic or watching the cartoon kind of made you go, I don't like this guy anymore?
I never ended up disliking him, but I remember the first time I saw Action Force figures, which was pretty much like the 85 Joe line that we got in 87 in the UK. As I said, I picked up Barbecue. I was just looking at this wall of figures, and the memory's a little bit vague. I don't believe I read the file card until I got home. I was just and I literally chose him due to design aesthetic. I like the shape of the helmet on the figure, the fact that he had accessories were always a big thing. So to me, it looked like I thought he had a flamethrower, not a fire extinguisher. But that and the fact that it clipped to his leg, the sort of pistol nozzle clipped to his leg, and this big axe. I never ended up hating him later, but when I got back and got home with him and sort of read the file card, I'm like, I don't know why I picked a firefighter. Like, why didn't I get a Flint or a Snake Eyes version 2 or whatever? So,
anything like that for you, Bobby?
I was very judgmental when it came to like a figure's face. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, Chuckles. Granted, Chuckles is a really stupid looking figure. I'm sorry for people in the chat that love Chuckles. It's just not my cup of tea. but he's got a really stupid looking face, like the way they sculpted his face. Now, a lot of the Joes were sculpted after guys that work there, but there's some that just are just weird looking. Toll Booth has a really stupid looking face. Like he's just weird looking. So it's like I wanted my GI Joes to be pretty men. I wanted them to be handsome.
Right.
But yeah, no, if guys just like the figures just were weird looking. Like it'd be like there are figures that I wish I was in my Joe room so I could see all the figures on the wall because I can easily pick them out. But there's some guys that had great gear and a great looking like outfit, but man, if they had a stupid looking head sculpt, I was like, oh, okay. Like I remember,
Yeah, Bobby, just very quickly, what's the worst part of the Tomahawk?
lift ticket. Lift ticket.
Yeah. How many people? I don't remember the pilot's name. The guy who piloted Slipstream, is it? Piloted the Conquest.
That's Slipstream. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got him when I was a kid, and he was all. It was in the.
You know what it was? I think when they sculpted heads with a helmet, like part of the face, they never came out good because then you had to deco the face paint and that kind of covered up details because you're putting a layer of flesh paint over the details, and paint always softens up details. So I think that kind of thing messed up figures' faces when it came to that kind of thing. If it was someone like Lifeline, he had a helmet and sunglasses, I think it was an easier take. But when you showed like Lift Tick, he's got like this real goofy face, like sitting in his stupid Huey helmet, and Slipstream, he's got this goofy smile and this Tom Selleck mustache, and you're just like, wow, this guy's weird looking. Yeah, so
that's I was kind of the same way. As weird as I didn't realize it at the time. I realized it looking back. I tended to go after Joes that looked like my dad. Like it was this weird thing. Like my dad didn't have he shaved. He didn't grow his facial hair. So if a Joe had like a mustache or a beard, I was like, they weren't my go-to. It's a bizarre thing, but I think little boys look up to their dads in most cases. Yeah. So
a low light version 2. Or not version 2, version 3, because version 2 is the Slaughter Marauders one.
Right.
The 90 or 91 version with the beard and the face paint, to a T, my dad. Like if I showed you a picture of my dad and I showed you that Lifeline figure, you're like, wait, did they sculpt this after your dad? And I remember finding that figure in the store and be like, Dad, they made a G.I. Joe of you. And that from like that day on, he was like my favorite G.I. Joe because it was like, this is my dad. Like, this is so cool. So, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. Kind of like there's one G.I. Joe whose name has escaped me at the moment. Looks dead on like Tony. I can't remember his name. You remember who we're talking about, Tony?
Michael French thinks it's Big Ben.
Big Ben, that's who it is. Looks dead on like Tony. Dead on. So,
and he just happens to be British SAS as well.
Yeah. So that's a bit behind, but Jason Keene says, great IconiCon, guys. Which G.I. Joe figure do you think was the first non-military type to mark the beginning of the decline of G.I. Joe? And I think it's probably, for me anyway, I don't think it's an unpopular opinion, but I blame Battle Force 2000 as a whole.
Battle Force 2000 was bad. I think Battle Force 2000 was bad, but luckily, because what was that, 87? So 88 was still a great year. 89 was still a great year. So they followed it up, but I think there was still that kind of like, ooh, that was a bad one. Maybe, that was like strike one. And it was kind of like, okay, well, don't do that again. And then it's like, I was a fan of Eco Warriors just because, like I said before, I was a younger generation Joe fan. So early 90s, I'm 8 years old. So it's like, I didn't look at that and be like, oh, Neon, that's stupid. I was like, Neon, cool, man, this is awesome.
Right. That's how I reacted to the Mega Marines. One of my favorite sublines.
Yeah.
Much hated by a lot of people, but those are some of my first G.I. Joes. So I think his name's Blastoff, the guy with the orange helmet.
Yeah.
I love those figures. Love them. What do you think, Tony? What do you think was the first kind of, I guess, nail in that coffin?
I think I've got a very controversial opinion on this, which is why I have never shared this.
Here we go.
Woo!
I've heard Retroblasting talk before about sci-fi being the figure that started to tip it in that direction.
Green
I think.
RoboCop.
Hey?
Green RoboCop?
Yeah, green RoboCop, like glow stick RoboCop. I actually think the first seed was sown earlier than that.
Mm.
And some people in the chat may hate me. The Crimson Twins were where the line started to go wrong for me.
Yeah, I can see that.
Interesting.
It is kind of a weird concept.
Interesting.
They're not.
They're
That was
really
the first chink in the armor I saw as the line was going on, and I could start to see a slightly different direction beginning there, because those figures fed into Mindbenders, Crystal Balls,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Raptor.
Yeah, Raptor. Yeah, that was just a very quick anecdote. I'm still kind of upset how cool Steel Brigade looks, but the Build-A-Cobra was all clad in purple or hot pink, rather.
Yeah.
Like, that's how they're going to do Cobra, huh? All right. So, Chris Johnson, a.k.a. Fixer, your boy. He says, three of my favorite people talking about my favorite type of toys. Rock and roll was his guy. Always rode with clutch. I actually got straight arm rock and roll for $8 on eBay last year because someone listed him as broken army toy, and he just had a broken O-ring. That's all that was wrong with him.
Yeah,
Deals. Good deals.
You got Alex here in the chat as well. Throwing chat. He's like, Bobby and Tony at this moment are the Crimson Twins.
Alex, he's just jealous.
Oh, yeah.
So to catch up, we have Scott Hughes again. Thank you all so much. He says, did you have the 80s pre-neon toy guns? The Edison, I'm not going to try and pronounce that. Realistic toys were his favorite. Edison still makes them in Italy, but they can't be imported. I wonder why. Probably lack of orange tip and bright neon colors.
I was going to bring it up on the game show when we were talking about the Toys R Us sweep thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get a chance to talk about like where the path I would take. But I don't know if this was for you, but in Toys R Us, before Toys R Us became the maze that it was before it went out of business, you walk in, you kind of go around one aisle wall, and everything was just straight, like a Costco. It was just straight aisles.
Mm-hmm.
And you used to have to turn and go down to about mid-store.
Mm-hmm.
First, there were two aisles of bikes and wagons and trikes. The first aisle, as soon as you saw like a wheeled vehicle, boom, you bang it right, go all the way down, and then it was like Melinda had up a good picture of a kid in the Star Wars aisle getting the Night Ravens,
right,
and right behind him you can see the aisle of bikes, and I'm like, oh, it was set up everywhere just like that. And then, so that aisle was long, and that had all like the mainstream action figures. But then the aisle next to it, to the left, was kind of like the toys on their way out. Like I remember some of the last waves of Masters of the Universe were there, and like some Starcom and some old mask, like stuff on their way out. Stuff that didn't really have any deep lines left, but also that aisle was like the gun aisle. And I remember there was a wooden rack. It was wood. The rack was wood. And then it had all the metal guns. The metal guns that you like cocked, and it was really hard to cock them. They were lever action, and they were awesome. And I think at first they didn't have the blaze orange tips, but later on they put them there. But I just remember they had the bolt action rifles that had like the bullet in the slide there, and they were metal, and wood, and it was like they were awesome. And they had the pullback hammers, and you put caps in them and stuff like that. Like those guns were great. And I remember finally getting one. I got a lever action for Christmas, and man, that thing was awesome. I had an orange tip on. I ripped that thing right off. Mm-hmm. But like those were like real rifles, and they were just so cool. And just the fact that they were in that that wooden rack in the aisle. I wish I remember like who made them, like what company, but the fact that their display was a wooden gun rack, you know,
Mhm.
that was awesome.
Well, at least they had many guns to necessitate an entire rack.
Yeah, you got what I was putting down.
That's right. I'm smart what you're stepping in. What about you, Tony? Do you have any familiarization with that brand?
Not with that brand in particular, but certainly just as much a part of my childhood with action figures was also with role play toys, wanting to have realistic looking guns. And from memory, I don't know what company made it or whatever, but I had a quite realistic looking AK-47, which was my kind of go-to, and it was a large water pistol, but it wouldn't have been life size, but probably 3/4 of life size. But the stock was molded in brown plastic, the barrel and all the metal parts were molded in black plastic. It looked at the time in the UK, it was probably, that I had come across anyway, the most realistic looking weapon, and I always wanted an assault rifle to play with. I remember when I came to Australia at 11, I think one of the first toys I got here, I don't know if we went to a toy store or whatever, but I found a very realistic looking, like Vietnam era basic M16, and I was like, I need that toy. I need that toy to go home. And I actually remember using a hacksaw blade, because it was like molded with like a 20-round magazine. I cut the magazine off it with a hacksaw and took a magazine from something else. And the push together clips that you have on like backpack lids clipped together. I would tape those onto the side of the magazine housing, the side of the magazine, so I could actually have spare magazines and just clip them together with like plastic buckles.
Yeah, see,
I was a weird kid.
Nah, I should have played with you, Tony. I was just running around with my bright neon blue pistol, just saying, "Bang!" Like that was the best I had, I guess.
I've even had some neon. I think Retro Blasting did a video ages ago where he restored like an Entertech water pistol.
Yep.
And I remember those coming out. That would have been, I think, in Australia, but they had gone like, they were bringing them out in fluorescent colors by then, like bright orange and stuff like that. And that was around the time I'd seen Die Hard, and I was fascinated by the MP5 and couldn't have a toy MP5, but came across this Entertech, which it was similar, it was a submachine gun. And I think I used about 5 rolls of black electrical tape to hide all that fluoro. I was obsessive about this stuff, camouflage and concealment.
See, related to that, Grindhead Jim has a super chat, and I think I may have had the same thing. He says here, quote, "I remember having the Daisy Blue steel lever action. I remember just going down all the non-pink aisles with awe." And I think I had the same one. At least I had it was a mixture of metal and plastic. It was a lever action, like kind of shotgun looking. So you would like crank the lever back and forth, and it would make a pop sound when you squeezed it. There were no caps or anything, but I had this big like butthole orange, like just hanging out there on the tip, like this big orange butthole. And I went out into my dad's shed and found tools. I was trying desperately to get that thing off the end, and he came out and caught me because I'm like 8 years old with no upper body strength. And I remember him laying into me, and that's when he explained to me why the orange tip was there, why it had to be there, and all that kind of stuff. I don't know what. I guess he thought the sheriff was going to shoot me. I don't know. But no, I think I remember that. So let's see now. So question for mostly for Bobby, actually. And I'm just going to read the question as I have it written. After the height of G.I. Joe and before ValaVerse, there was this major void in the market for military-style toys. Why do you think that is? Was it public opinion about military efforts, a lack of patriotism in schools and at home, or the media, or something else?
Good question. I mean, honestly, I don't know the answer. I mean, I've always heard, like my days at Hasbro, that G.I. Joe was hard to market because, it's an American red, white, and blue brand. And I thought that was total bullshit because Hasbro put Palitoy out of business to then just market their own G.I. Joe brand overseas. It was like, sure, you had G.I. Joe and, you know, figures under the Action Force banner. And then they changed Action Force to look just like the G.I. Joe logo, red, white, and blue. And then it was just G.I. Joe after that. So it was like, I don't want to hear that it was too American, because listen, it did just fine for years everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny because I always say that you know, from like A Real American Hero ended in 94, but then what stuff came back in 96. They did sort of the throwback Hall of Fame 2-packs, you know, with redecos and that whole Pimp Daddy era. And then it was like the early ValaVerse Venom. And like, to me, that era just doesn't exist. I hate that era. I think it's just total dog shit.
Mm-hmm.
To me, G.I. Joe doesn't come back into frame until 2007 with 25th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
So from 95 to 2007, to me, Joe doesn't even exist. Like there was no G.I. Joe then.
Right.
Although G.I. Joe was putting out a lot of product in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you go back and look at that ValaVerse Venom line, like they went deep. There's a ton of figures.
Oh yeah.
And to me, it just wasn't for me. I wasn't digging it. I wasn't digging those big, like, I remember I was in art school, you know, me and Alex were in art school, and they reissued the G.I. Joes, and I got them because I was like, whoa, G.I. Joe is back.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the buff Duke and buff Cobra Commander, and then these power stances. And I was like, I'm good, man. Like I got them, but I'm good. You know, and I think I got Cobra Commander and Duke, the 2-pack, but then maybe I got one more 2-pack, but I didn't like go heavy into that at all because it wasn't for me. You know, there wasn't really animation, or if there was, I just didn't really care about it. So I don't know why it fell off. I mean, it's not like War was bad. Like War didn't start getting like a bad connotation until like well into, you know, the second Iraq War and the war in Afghanistan. Like we all came together for September 11th, and then it didn't start getting like a Vietnam feel where everyone was like, why are we here? We got to get out of there until, I don't know, 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
And then 25th anniversary came out in 2007, and boom, Joe was like back, and like it was selling. Then the movie came out. And the movie really hurt the modern line a lot for many reasons. But you know,
I get really shit.
Yeah, it's really shit. But also, it's like when you have an $8.99 figure next to a $7.99 figure, and they're the same offering, it's just one's a movie figure and one's not. It confuses your customer. Like, wait a second, why is this different? It's both G.I. Joe. Why is $1 more? $1 more?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think there's anything like society wise that really hurt military toy lines. I just think it was just, you know, military action movies are still coming out. I just don't think. I think that was a kind of like a bullshit excuse that Hasbro would give because it was selling fine in the early 2000s, and then selling great in 2007 and you know and beyond. So yeah, I don't know. I really don't.
I gotcha. Do you have any ideas, Tony?
Just my opinion. I just think in today's modern society of political correctness and everyone's offended by everything, I think these big, certainly global corporations, it's just, well, they don't have any balls, do they? So that they look at a franchise like that and go, that's complicated. That could get messy. It might get messy. You know, just stick to Star Wars and Marvel, and you know, I think big global corporations have got no balls.
Yeah,
and political correctness has run rampant in our society. It's gone way too far.
Yeah, they don't want to embrace the challenges that might come. They want the quick and easy kind of stuff instead of looking at things not objectively, but looking at something seriously and being like, hey, we this is a toy line that could sell. These are the possible ramifications, but this is how we're going to deal with that. They're like, nah, let's do Thor. That's easier. That's safer. Everyone likes Thor. So, World Made of Cardboard says, he's with you, Tony. I almost joined the military and the Marines because of G.I. Joe. Health problems, however, made that not possible. So, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Here's something that Tony and I are both familiar with, and if you're not, Bobby, then I highly recommend it. He says, James Salzberg says, World Peacekeepers sold fine at Big Lots. And that's true.
I don't know.
The vehicles are great. The figures, not so much.
Yeah, they're depending on where you're at, they're either called World Peacekeepers or Click and Play. So I actually have a video coming out tomorrow about those.
That's the company that did the 3 3/4 Black Hawk.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That I've seen.
AKA vehicles and playsets for G.I. Joe, because the figures are shit.
Gotcha.
Like they're bad. The figures are, but playsets are great.
Also, just to answer that real quick, and I just remembered that when G.I. Joe was on its hiatus after 2015, Toys R Us's military line, like they had their own military line that they branded themselves. I forget what it was called. Something Heroes or something like that. It took up feet of shelf space in the action figure aisle. And I just remember thinking, like, it sells really, really well because it's Toys R Us's own brand. They sell it there, and there was no G.I. Joe. But it's like, bullshit. Military isn't hot, or military doesn't sell, or it's taboo. It's like Toys R Us was doing a line with tons of vehicles and figures for years.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm not gonna try and pretend to know like what goes on behind their closed doors, but there had to be some other reason. Like you said, I'm not buying the excuses that they were feeding. It's not adding up.
Hero Force. That's what it was called. Hero Force. They did a C-130.
Okay. Yeah.
Great line.
White Vegeta says, in my opinion, if military theme is such a taboo subject, then why is Call of Duty and Battlefield so popular? Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point.
Because all the guys playing Call of Duty were Joe fans when they were kids.
Mm-hmm. And Raymond Huey, thank you for the super chat, says, great live stream. In addition to G.I. Joe Action Force past and present, which are awesome, have any of you checked out any other realistically based military toy lines like BBI, Elite Force, or the Ultimate Soldier? I've personally never heard of either of those.
BBI and Elite Force, they were good. They did. It was in the very early 2000s. They sold very realistic 3 3/4 inch military, and it wasn't characters. It was just like a Navy SEAL, Frogman, or they did World War II. They did amazing vehicles, like their World War II vehicles. Incredibly expensive, but unbelievably detailed. They did a Sherman. I have a couple of the planes, like I have a Mustang, unbelievably detailed. But if you get a chance, like look into the BBI stuff. I think it's Blue Box International and Elite Force, but that stuff is fantastic. Definitely doesn't have the articulation. It has early 2000s articulation.
Gotcha.
So it lacks there, but as far as detail and paint, it's unbelievable. And their vehicles far surpass their figures.
Okay, so it seems to be a common theme.
They did a lot of 1/6 scale stuff. I'm familiar with all 3 of those toy lines, but for me, I actually did really get into this quite a lot in the early 2000s or late 90s, early 2000s, collecting 1/6 scale World War II military figures. But the brand that I thought stood out from the pack was Dragon. Dragon models made some and continue to make. Obviously, the popularity, but there was a good 10-year period there where that stuff just took off.
Yeah, Dragon set the stage for Sideshow and Hot Toys. Dragon was around before Sideshow and Hot Toys, and they were putting out very realistic 1/6 figures.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of realistic things, Wolfie762 says the MGC, or Model Gun Company, out of Japan, made a ton of action-enabled and metal cap firing replicas. He asks if any of us owned any, he's not sure if they were sold at Toys R Us, but he picked up a Sterling Mach 5 a few years ago. Amazing detail. Any experience for those from either of you?
I mean, I had cap guns, but I don't know if I had these specific ones.
Yeah, and the UK was a bit funny with this kind of stuff. You could get cap guns, but they didn't want anything to look too realistic. The plastic guns, I remember in the 80s we could get quite a lot of plastic guns that look quite realistic, as long as they had the orange tips in them, but not the die cast ones. All the cap guns I remember having as a kid. The best ones that we would have as kids is if your family ever took you on holiday somewhere in Europe. If you went, I remember going to Spain and coming back with this heavy metal, like cowboy style rifle that took. You used to get either the paper caps or the ring of plastic caps. Mm-hmm. So I had like a heavy metal cowboy rifle, but with a revolver barrel in it that you could put the caps in. And but yeah, we had to buy that from Spain and bring it back into the country. And I remember my dad getting stuck in customs and getting questioned about it.
Oof. Yeah, that's cap guns. I never really got into them as a kid because I was supposed to be quiet. So I was only really allowed to be loud when adults weren't around. So, which is bizarre. It was like a rule for me, but not for my siblings. I don't know, maybe I was just extra loud. Who knows? But
can I just very quickly? I want to answer Alex's question here.
Absolutely.
Which he directed to me. He's asking if I like the 1/6 sideshow G.I. Joe figures. Mm-hmm. I really regret not collecting those at the time, Alex, because they've become very, very expensive now. I think that's one of the best interpretations of G.I. Joe. The Zartan is great. The Beachhead is great. Rock and Roll is fantastic. And I was like, why didn't they get these guys to design the costumes for the live action movie?
Yeah,
always astounded me. Yeah, I think I've got one. I've got the later issue Cobra Commando that's got the hood head and the mirror head swap out. I've got the one figure in the collection, but yeah, I think they're fantastic.
Yeah, I remember watching that video of yours, and it made me go, like we talked about earlier in the morning, or I guess last night for you. I was like, ooh, and went on eBay, and I was like, oh, because those prices went up high. Yeah. So I admire from afar. But so I kind of wanted to talk about, we touched on it earlier with the decline of G.I. Joe and how they kind of went just kind of nuts after a certain point with like the DEF and Mega Marines. And I've already admitted I have a very big soft spot for the Mega Marines. I have this kind of obsession almost with trying to find, was it Predacon? Is that the alien's name with 4 arms?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but that one speaks to me. What do you think kind of caused all that? Was it kind of them running out of ideas or chasing like the zeitgeist? Because when the DEF showed up, it was like war on drugs and remember DARE programs, and we had Eco Warriors, Save the Rainforest, and all that kind of stuff with Toxic Avenger and Captain Planet. You think it was a zeitgeist thing, or they were just like, we don't have any more ideas?
Yeah, I think they were probably just going after trends. I mean, they said that, Sergeant Savage, like the reason why they went ultra buff Sergeant Savage is because comic book heroes started to become big in action figures. And
thanks, Rob Liefeld.
Right, dick. And then like look at what Kenner was doing in the early 90s. They had Aliens, they had Predator. I think they were still doing some sort of RoboCop, but Aliens and Alien, like not just Aliens like the movie, like Aliens like in general, I think started to become more prevalent in toys. And I think that people at Hasbro probably just, this is a great, like, I'm sure Kirk Bazigian, you can look up an interview with him. I'm sure he talks about this a bunch of times, like why they would go in this direction. But I think that's probably why they did it. They were probably just like, oh, we need to go into this Predator and Alien realm, and because it's like we can't just keep doing GI Joe versus Cobra. We need like a new enemy. Okay, well, what do you do? Or well, aliens. Aliens were something that were big in the '90s. So that's probably why they went down that route. I mean, look, they went to space. You go to space, you kill a line. So it's like you're throwing darts at a board. It's like, oh, we did that. Oh, we did that. Like you were saying, it's like, oh, we're on drugs. Okay, eco. Captain Planet, that kind of bullshit. And then it's like, what's next? Aliens, And I wonder if G.I. Joe didn't go, like, 90 was still okay. 91 had still had some cool military design figures, but that's when you started getting the neon weapons. If they had just kept going with real world military, still doing, another Snake Eyes, but then, adding new characters in, I would love to have seen like what would have happened. Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I don't know. Were they seeing declining sales? I don't know. I mean, from what Kirk has said, in '94, G.I. Joe was still selling really well. So who knows? He's definitely the guy. Probably pick his brain, and I'm sure he has tons of interviews on YouTube you could look up where he talks about that.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense to an extent, because it's like, how long can they really fight Cobra before one side has to win, kind of thing? Because it's other like, we'll get him next week, guys, kind of thing. So I get it. And they tried with Serpentor, which, hot take, I hate Serpentor. I am not a fan. So, story time. I had never read a comic or seen the cartoon for G.I. Joe. Never. Until I was like 11, maybe 12. And we went to Blockbuster, which was a rare occurrence, and I saw a G.I. Joe movie on the shelf. And I was like, oh, there's a movie. Cool. I watched it and fucking hated it, because I had no frame of reference for anything going on. The only Cobra I had ever seen had a hood, and I was like really confused about the battle helmet and who Serpentor was, and I was pretty fucking angry at the end of that movie because I had no idea what was going on, and I was real mad. So that's just a fun story for you. Just letting you guys know, sometimes that happens.
And sometimes people just catch it in the right time of their life, hey, Bobby, and they like Cobra La. And
I was okay with it, man. And Sal, I'm sorry, I love Serpentor.
Oof. So, no, having seen the show now and seen the movie, I'm like, I get it. I'm like, oh, okay, I was once a man. Still kind of gets to me a little bit, but it's fine. Like, it's. I've accepted it now, but as a kid, oof. I like the whole concept, taking the DNA from these world leaders to make Serpentor. I was like, okay. But
so what's better, Bobby? G.I. Joe the movie or Conan the Destroyer?
Oh, how dare you lay that on me like that? Conan the Destroyer. Listen, Conan the Destroyer is epic, man. That movie's amazing. Okay, one, he punches a horse. Two, it has one of my favorite lines ever, and it's not even by Conan. It's when Grace Jones says, grab him and take him. Like, the movie's amazing. It's got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Like, the movie's so good. It's so good. Like, I don't know how people hate on that movie. It's so good. Mm-hmm. It's got an unbelievable score. The score for that movie, fantastic.
Hey, speaking,
everyone needs to just give it another chance.
That's right. So, speaking of nothing at all, but to give Bobby the floor, Little Bird told me that there may be some kind of big Action Force announcement for this stream.
Maybe. Yeah, I guess we could do a little something. I guess maybe if people want it.
The chat's gonna have to let us know though if they're interested. So
I think maybe what we can start is maybe we'll play a little game with Tony first. So let me see if I can do this right. Let me share my screen here and see if I can do this.
Okay.
So let's see.
Just while Bobby's trying to figure out the technology, I just want to let everyone know that These Action Force t-shirts that you can get over on the ValaVerse.com website are actually made of Kevlar. It's the lightest weight Kevlar I've ever worn, and I feel bigger in this shirt and more powerful.
That's right.
All right. So can you guys see my screen? All right. Who's this guy? Does anybody know who this guy is? Tony, do you recognize this guy?
Of course, I recognize this guy.
That is one handsome man, if I've ever seen one.
This is one handsome British SAS operative right here. This, everyone, if you can't tell, is our own Tony Roberts. I hope he doesn't mind me showing these pictures of him. This is during his time in Iraq, I believe. But you could see how much of a badass Tony is. So, okay, so you recognize this. You knew who this was. Do you know what that is?
I do.
What is it? Tony, what is that?
That's a short-barreled M4 that was heavily customized by me in Iraq.
Okay. All right. So you're 2 for 2. Let's see if you can get the next one. Who's this guy?
Wow.
Anybody recognize this guy? If you don't, maybe this will help. I want to show everyone the newest addition, as long as he approves, to the Action Force line in Series 2. This is Desert Rat, based on our own Tony Roberts.
I'm not crying, honestly.
It's okay. You're not on screen right now, Tony.
I wasn't sure if the silence was a bad thing because I can't see you guys.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Only Sal can see us when we're in the back posting. Man, I tell you what, I love this, Bobby. I love this.
So you approve?
I like.
I can do the figure.
Of course, man.
Awesome.
I love the fact that the pants aren't bloused or tucked into the boots, because that's not only something I did in Iraq. I never used to tuck my pants in the special forces either. 3/4 rolled sleeves was a big thing for me. Man, that's awesome.
I tried to get as close to your look as possible, but also, little new flair. I know you didn't have the Shema on, but I had tooled it new and I hadn't given it to anyone yet. And I was like, I'm going to give it to Tony.
Well, I would wear a Shema in the winter in Iraq, because it does get damn cold there in like January, February out in the desert with the wind. And if you can put up the photos of me again.
Yep. So let's just go to Tony.
Okay, zoom in that one on the middle, if you can. That pouch at the back.
This one?
Yep. Okay. Underneath that is my rolled up.
I see it. I see it right there.
It was strapped on with elastic that I could pull out when it got cold and I needed to.
I gotcha.
Around.
Okay. So let's let me just zoom out so I can blow through the pages easier.
We have James Salzberg saying he wants 4, and we have where is it? We have Andrew M saying he wants 3. So I would say this is pretty popular. Awesome. This is a good announcement.
So I'm going to do this. So I said this is going to be part of Series 2. It may not be like initially Series 2, but this might be like a month behind the mainline Series 2. This one is going to be a ValaVerse.com exclusive. So this one isn't going out to any of the online retailers, Big Bad, or anyone like that. I want this one to go right to the ValaVerse site. Your figure's going to be in the throwback package. The only other one that's in there is Slammer. So I thought it would be cool for you to be the Desert Rat throwback. So
fucking love you, Bobby.
And the cool thing is I'm glad you said yes to doing the figure, because sorry. So here's a breakdown of the figure and all the gear kind of separated, so you can see what you're wearing. And then I just got images from the factory of test shots. So your parts have been tooled, and these were the first run test shots of your parts. Now, the vest and the gun belt are, the Tim Kennedy figure uses them as well, but the Shema and your head are the newly tooled parts, which is very exciting and timed perfectly. And I think,
I'm just sitting here
and that's
listening. I'm just sitting here listening to my wallet go. So we're buying like 5 of these, right?
So, all right.
Hey, Masterson thinks they're very popular. He says, I will buy 2 of those, one to display and one to keep safe. And Kevin McAlfrey says, awesome. Love the code name.
Yeah.
And now World Made of Cardboard has a question, which I would support. I'm not sure how the logistics would work, but he asks, autographed by Tony?
We can make something happen.
Yeah.
So, oh boy, we're okay. So
is there a general consensus that people dig the figure? I have to go back and look at the chat now.
Absolutely, yeah. Everyone's loving it, and if you don't love it, you can get the fuck out my chat. Chris says, will he be in the comic? There's a question for you.
Yeah, I mean, Tony had no idea about this, so I haven't talked to him about the logistics of being included in the line. So, we'll work all that out. But, step one was making sure he dug the figure.
Yep. What?
I told my wife, I showed it to her. I said, I'm going to make Tony cry again. Just watch.
And Jim Largo says, this is why we love Bobby. He respects the vets, the fans, and his friends. Well done, sir. Oh, and here comes Fixer. He says, Tony's action force as fuck.
I tell you, one of the first things not the first, my mind's a bit blurry at the moment. You're showing these images, and Fixer, I want to give you a shout out, because one of the first things that came into my head was like, how's he going to react? How's he going to react? Fixer, let us know in the chat if you're going to talk about this on the next Call to Action podcast, and if you are, I want to come on your show and have that chat with you.
Now, I just want to point out, I didn't know this announcement was coming, okay? Bobby gave me the option to know, and I was like, nah, I want to be surprised with Tony. Tony, at the beginning of this stream, you said Action Force made you want to join, or Action Man Action Force made you want to join the military because you could grow up to be one. You've literally grown up to be an Action Force.
The circle is now complete.
That's right. White Vegeta says, sweet Christmas, yes, please. And then Resolute123 says, congratulations, Tony.
Thank you, Dad. And a shout out. Resolute123 is also a vet, and the guy who designed the IconiCon t-shirt with the Freddy Krueger and all that. So he does a lot of the artwork for Retroblasting and the analog toys where you see me dressed like an action figure. That's Resolute123. So thank you, Dave.
Which, for those that don't know, it's Michael on the shirt. It's Michael as Marty McFly, Melinda as Freddy Krueger, and our own Tony Roberts as Flint. And I'm the Dr. Claw hand at the top.
Yep.
I'm not sure if anyone else has put that together yet. So, and Melinda sent in a super chat. Thank you, Melinda. Oh, you better do it, Tony. She says, Tony, you better autograph ours.
100%. I'll 100%. I'll be doing that.
So,
I think hopefully Australia lets Americans back into their continent again. But it'd be really nice to hand deliver your figure to you.
We'll see what we can do. I'm getting my vaccination soon. That's going to be one of the big hurdles for Australia. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Maybe I'll bring some riffraff with me. Maybe Sal and Michael. Maybe we'll take a trip down there.
Don't tempt me, Frodo. Don't tempt me. Keith Knight says, Bobby, that is an awesome figure. He will defo have 2, please. And Tony, I'm not in tears either. Honest, Gov.
Keith is a dear friend of mine, a long time serving London police officer, who's mad as a box of frogs, but that's why I love him. So,
and completely hilarious.
Yes,
100%. ML Series says, thank you, Bob and Vala and Tony. This is awesome. He can't wait. And we have Darren Cobb, who says, so you grew up reading Action Force, now you are an Action Force. That's life goals.
I've got to do an interview tomorrow with Bob Breakin. How's he? He's going to love this.
I'll email you the images so you can share them. But.
Yeah, that'll be cool. That'll be very cool. But Bob hasn't been watching IconiCon. He's away on holiday with the family. He literally, I think he gets back Saturday night or Sunday morning, and then I do the interview with him on Sunday. So
cool.
Yeah. So quickly, because we are running out of time, Scott Hughes wanted to let me know, or wanted me to tell you, Bobby, that the rifles in the wooden rack at Toys R Us in the 80s were made by Paris Toys and MFG. They apparently made training rifles in World War II and then switched to toys.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. Now I know.
And knowing's half the battle. Brendan Haley, welcome, Brendan, says, Tony, you introduced me to Action Force. It's amazing to see you in this line. Thanks, Bobby. And I'm sure Aussies will get signatures first, right? Please.
I'll square you away, Brendan. We're good friends, so we'll sort something out. And
for those that are listening, the descriptions in the description of this video is the ValaVerse website. English is hard, especially when you're my adrenaline's still pumping from seeing that. So go there. You can pre-order it whenever it goes live, which you're gonna have to get behind me because I'm already in line. So I got my tent set up and everything, and my piss jug. I'm set. I'm ready. So, but we are 2 minutes till time. So I would ask you gentlemen to go round robin. You can tell everyone where you're from, what you're doing, what you got going on, and plug all your stuff. Take it away, Bobby.
I'm Tony Roberts from Analog Toys. I thought I was cosplaying. Sorry.
Yeah.
I am Bobby Vala from ValaVerse. You can search ValaVerse everywhere on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm also on an awesome podcast on Friday nights called The Infinity Equation with my brothers Alex, Dante, and Ryan Laserpants. Every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we go there and we throw down on toys. So go check it out.
That is true. They have my shining endorsement every Friday. Tony, listen, I know my lot in life. I understand where I am in the pecking order of things. If you're in my chat and you hadn't heard of Bobby, that's asinine. If you're in my chat and somehow haven't heard of Tony Roberts from Analog Toys, I don't know what's up with YouTube and their algorithm, but they need to get that sorted out. But in the off chance that they don't know who you are, Tony, tell them about yourself, where you're from, where they can find you, all that kind of stuff.
My name is Tony, and I'm in love with Bobby Vala.
Huh.
Same. I said this morning on the International Toys that there'd be a lot of man love on this stream, didn't I?
Yeah. I hope your wife doesn't get upset, Bobby. Can I take you out on a date?
Anytime, baby. Anytime.
Beers and peanuts. Sorry, shots. You can.
Want me to handle this? Guys, this is Tony Roberts. You could find him Analog Toys on YouTube. He does great videos, a lot of vintage stuff, a lot of vintage action force, vintage toys. He does a lot of modern stuff too. You know what? He just has a great channel. So if you don't know Tony and you're living under, a rock, go look up Analog Toys on YouTube and just go follow him.
Well said. Well said. The final super chat sneaking in. Jason Keene says, "Thanks for all the great cussing for a change. You got it. That's what we fucking do." So, without further ado, please go to the next stream for IconiCon. Support all of us. It means the world. It really helps out everyone. And we're all one giant big old family out here, even with all the man love and everything else. So, thank you all for stopping by. I'm Sal. That was Bobby. That was Tony. Two of the greatest men I've ever known. We're signing off, and we'll see you around the con.
Thank
Cheers.
you.